Hi. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. All right. So now that we have our app rendering correctly, because Cornell fixed it for us, we kind of, so we work in the same team in web customer care. And our next step is to make sure that our app actually works as we intended to, right? We deployed it, it's rendering okay, but we need tests. What happens when the support page doesn't work? This is what happens. Our customers can't fix their problems. Agents can't help the customers. It just, nothing happens, right? There's nothing we can do. So as you guys probably know, there's kind of 4 groups of tests that we run, which is the units, functionals, E2Es, smokes. That's pretty much standard. But because we are such a big company, we have 20 locales per page. So if you're building one page, that just became 20 pages. And when you're running these tests at scale like that, and you're running, for example, some functionals, some Z2Es, and some smokes, that's going to take a long time as well. So you're sitting around maybe for 40 minutes waiting for your pipeline, or you're just waiting to run the test locally to then push to the pipeline. You just wasted 2 hours, right? So how we run these tests to get started is we use Cypress. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's a framework to help you write your tests. You can also see the output of your page and the tests on the side. So if there's any problems, you can go ahead and visualize them. It's much easier, great developer experience. If you guys have not used it, give it a try. And then come ask me at the end why not Playwright, okay? You can also use Playwright, okay? It's the same. So how do we structure our tests? For those of you that have used Cypress, you probably think, how do you know if it's a unit test, a functional, or an E2E? We do this by just naming the files differently. It's very simple. We just put the test thing on the file. And now you're asking me, how does Cypress know about it? It's also very simple. That's a spec parameter that you can pass to Cypress that you can then specify a glob pattern of how your file names should look on your run command. So then it will pick up only those files. It also works on the watch command. You can also use Cypress _spec as the environment variable that way. But this is how we do it. We just write the tests in separate files, and then we run the bits we want. And why we write the tests in separate files is because, you know, for functional tests, we are mocking. But for E2Es and smokes, we don't want to do that. We want to actually use what the customers are using, and maybe even from E2E and smokes, right? You don't want to be creating every time a production user, because that's complicated. And if you can automatically create a production user, there's probably something going wrong. Your security team is going to call you. So that's how we do it. And yeah, after we write all these tests, this is an accurate picture of what happens, right? If you have used Cypress, when it takes about 10 seconds for a test, if you have 2 pages, that's 40 tests. That's starting to add up. That's, you know, your 1 hour, 2 hours. This is an accurate picture of what happens. I just go take a coffee or something, right? My manager is very happy about that. Don't mention it, okay? So if you read through Cypress the documentation, you'll find the parallel command, and you go, great, I have the parallel. I can just add this command and, add this parameter, and it works. You then find out that maybe it's not as easy as the Cypress docs will tell you, which is just press the button and you're parallelized. That's not how it works. The first step is you going to probably need a lawyer, because you probably need a contract, because you need to sign up to Cypress Cloud, and your company likes to protect their code. So you're gonna go talk to a lawyer. Has any of you ever had to have that talk with a lawyer in a company? Yes? It was a good time? You enjoyed that? No. Yeah. After this, because it's a paid product, right? You're gonna have to go and talk to finance. And they're gonna be very happy that you're spending their budget for a testing framework. So yeah, if you don't have a budget, can't spend it. So what do we do? The alternative is kind of go open source, right? There's got to be an open source alternative. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. Is Sorry Cypress is a one-to-one kind of platform for Cypress Cloud. Cypress Cloud is the paid offering by Cypress, and Sorry Cypress is a open sourced on-premise self-hosted alternative. This was built by someone that had the same issues we have, where they wanted to keep they can't really take the code out of the company because of lawyers and finance people, and they wanted to make sure that they can still run their tests and parallelize them. So he built Sorry Cypress, which a lot of people contribute to, and is a one-to-one test. What this allows you to do is then you can deploy this to your own infrastructure, which means your compliance and your existing tooling will work, and everyone in your company is happy, especially the DevOps people and all the security people that you have to talk to get these things going. But they'll be happy. You'll be happy because you have a place to go, and then you can start parallelizing your tests. You can then pick how many you want to run. How you run them, you literally just run a new terminal. You have one terminal running. If you run another one, Sorry Cypress understands like what your build, it uses like a build ID system. So it understands your build ID and it understands how many tests you have in total and how many runners you have running to then run those tests. So how do we use it at Roku? So we recently deployed Sorry Cypress into our existing Kubernetes stack. So all of our apps are deployed in this Kubernetes stack. We deployed Sorry Cypress there, and then we just hooked it up to our CI/CD. In CI/CD, all I do is I run the same job 3 times in parallel. That's as simple as that. You run the same job 3 times in parallel, you pass the build ID, and Sorry Cypress understands, okay, this is the same job, we're just gonna split the tests by 3, and guess what? It went from 1 hour to 15 minutes. And that has great benefits, right? So if we parallelize by 3, your 2-hour loss per day now just became a gain, right? So then everyone's happy. So if you spend 3 times if you spend 3 times less time, your sprint will go faster by 3, right? So everyone's happier. You get your sprint points in, everyone, your product owners will love you, and yeah. That's a long time. If you actually look at it, if we have a team of 5 people, that's like a full working week that you're saving. So now that we have, the test, we have the platform, we parallelize it, we're all good. So where do we go from here? You might think, how do you debug that? How can we debug or test when they're running on CI? You don't have access to the Cypress interface, right? Which, if you have used it, is quite easy. How do we get past it? So there is a few things that we want to call out in the future. So there's people behind Sorry Cypress also are now introduced what's called Cypress Debugger, which you can use in your app. It's just like a plugin that you put in, and it gives you like a JSON dump of your tests that fail or that you run. You can take that, you can go to a website called cypressdebugger.dev. You plug that in and you have the same interface as you have locally. So now when you need to debug, you literally have the same tools there. You can then make sure that all is working. Maybe you have a problem on a CI/CD that can't access a URL, but you can locally. That's really easy to understand. And the next one is Playwright. As you guys probably gonna question why Cypress versus Playwright. I know that Cypress doesn't do full async await, and it does their own kind of, it's blue-based promise async await, which can be complicated. So Sorry Cypress also has the ability, I think is in beta right now, to use Playwright. And if in the future that's what we want to do, we have the platform there. And I think that's it for me. So if you guys got any questions, then yes.
That's really good, Felipe. Thank you very much. Questions, anyone?
Yeah, I do like asking questions, so yeah, bear with me. So I was thinking about when you are working locally, are you then restricted by your hardware in terms of how many instances of Cypress you can run? So would you generally just like deploy to some test environment and run it on like Kubernetes or like whatever it is, rather than like testing locally?
It's up to you how you want to do it. How I do it, I just pushed it to the PR and wait to go green.
Yeah,
It depends on your workflow, but sometimes I run like the tests that I'm changing locally because it may be one or two, and then I push it to the PR, and because there's 5 or
The
6
whole
run, it
suite.
just runs the whole thing.
Yeah, makes sense.
But you could have because you can also deploy it. There's Kubernetes deployment built in. There's also Docker Compose. So if you wanted to stand up your own locally, you could. It's very simple to stand up.
True. Fair enough. Thank you.
There's one more over here.
Yeah, I was just wondering what the triggers were for each of the sort of the different Cypress testing suite types. So like you've got the functional test, the E2E test, the smoke test.
One of them is environments, right? As you progress through your environments, things will change. There's no company in the world that has the same production environment that they go have staging as they go like QA. That's just not feasible, right? And you want to prove that your app works on all the environments. So when you're doing smokes is after, say if I deploy to production, how do I know that actually works, right? So I want to have those smoke tests to be confident and say, I deployed it, the test run, it definitely works, right? E2E is more of like, I deployed it to our staging environment, I run these more complicated tests and it works, but I still run the smokes just to confirm. It's different, I guess like different layers that you layer in and to give you confidence, right?
So is there like automation hooks? So like are the E2Es run like a nightly basis or something?
Yeah, so so in part of your pipeline, you can specify like which branch, if you're doing a branching strategy, which branch you want to run like for each part.
Question.
Thank you. You mentioned that you managed to make it 3 times faster.
Yeah.
Why not 5 times? What limitations did you run into?
So yeah, I was going to talk about that. I didn't just for time, but there is still a time there. So there is still a diminishing return once you get to depending on your level of tests and how many parallel, right? Because there's time that you still need for Cypress to start up. You need the browser to start up. So if you have 10 tests and you're running 5 times, like 5 parallelized, it's probably not the best. So as your like test scales, you then have to change like your how many you want. But from what I've seen, and I've been using it for about 2 years now, I would say like 3 to 5 is the sweet spot. Yeah.
Brilliant. We're into there. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll just have a very quick panel question time just to get